Welcome to the next video in Gender Spectrum's Intersectionality series. My name is Ian, I'm 16, I live in North Carolina, and I use they/them pronouns, but he/him pronouns work too. I have a lot of words that I use to describe my gender identity, but the ones I use most are transgender and non-binary. To me, this basically means that I don't identify as entirely male or female, and my gender is kind of mushy and fluid. It isn't always exactly the same. My gender identity is a big part of my overall identity, but it definitely isn't the only part. I have a bunch of different parts of my identity, and they all interact in different ways. And to me, this has a lot to do with intersectionality. To me, intersectionality means that everyone has different parts of their identities. These different parts interact and intertwine in various ways, and multiple forms of oppression can be experienced at the same time. It means that people can share one part of their identities, but still have very different experiences because of other parts of their identities. I have many different important parts of my identity, but the one I'm going to focus on most in this video is my neurodivergence. I first want to emphasize that my experiences with my neurodivergence are just that, mine. I don't want to speak for anyone else because everyone's experiences are different. So know that after you've heard a little bit more about me, you've heard a little bit more about one neurodivergent person, not every neurodivergent person. For me, being neurodivergent basically means that my brain doesn't function in a way the world considers normal. And for me, it's less about mental health and more about developmental differences, though my differences do affect my mental health. I have been diagnosed with a bunch of different things by past doctors, but my current doctors are still trying to figure out exactly which of those diagnoses best describe me. Language is tricky, and diagnoses can have a lot of overlap. So in this video, I'm going to focus more on the characteristics of my neurodivergence instead of specific diagnoses and labels. One characteristic of my neurodivergence is that I have trouble communicating. I've had to work really hard to be as good at it as I am, but I still have trouble understanding social cues, nonverbal communication, and things that aren't made explicitly clear. Communication for me is usually about patterns that I learn and remember, and less about interactions that come entirely naturally, though they do come completely genuinely, and nobody should think that they don't. I keep scripts in my head so I know what to say in different situations, and that really helps with my ability to communicate. I'm also sometimes unable to talk, especially under periods of high stress. Another characteristic is that I have restricted interests. This means that I sometimes become obsessed with certain topics and latch on to certain ideas. It can be a good thing. I'm really enthusiastic and passionate, but it can be a bad thing because I don't always know when to stop. I sometimes forget to eat or sleep, and I often ramble on about topics that nobody cares about. I also have sensory differences. I have trouble processing sound and texture. Little noises can sound like fire alarms, and big noises can be all-consuming. Certain textures feel like barbed wire, and certain fabrics feel like sandpaper. These differences often cause me to stim. Stimming, or self-stimulatory behavior, is repetitive movement or speech that can be really soothing and calming. Everybody does it, but I do it more, and I often do it in ways that are deemed socially unacceptable. I am also super impulsive, distractible, and hyper. I have mood regulation issues with anxiety, and issues with executive functioning. These things make me different, and they definitely present big challenges in my life, but they don't make me less than anybody else. I have struggled with loving myself and caring for myself largely because the world has told me that I'm broken, because I'm trans, because I'm neurodivergent, and because I happen to be both. I explain to them why they're wrong, but my communication issues often make it hard to articulate exactly how my gender identity feels, even when people are very accepting and validating of me, so it's even harder when they're not. Another way these identities relate is in the similarity between my gender dysphoria caused by being trans and my sensory differences caused by being neurodivergent. I often have a hard time telling my gender dysphoria and my sensory issues apart because they often feel rather similar. I have a hard time dealing with things that can help alleviate dysphoria because of my sensory issues as well. Binders, for example, are really uncomfortable for me. Clothing can be an issue as well. When I was little, for example, I wore dresses until I was in 5th grade and hardly ever wore pants because they were so awful on my legs, even though dresses made me feel really weird. I have gone through tons of different types of therapy for my sensory issues and also for my communication issues, but these therapies often made me very dysphoric and uncomfortable. In occupational therapy, for example, gender was very much enforced. The same is true for the social skills group I used to go to. I did theater to help with communication and dance to help with coordination, but both were very gendered as well, and I was often made to play roles that I wasn't comfortable playing. I think being comfortable with yourself and loving yourself is super important, especially when society doesn't always want you to. The world often wants me to be something I'm not. It wants my brain to function in a way it views as better. It wants me to express my gender in a way that makes it comfortable. It wants people to fit inside little boxes to be accepted, and when they don't, it views them as inferior and marginalizes them. I think that when the world wants you to be something you're not, it's even more important than it normally is to love yourself and care for yourself. Even if other people don't treat you like you do, you matter. That is something that I need to remember, and that I hope you all do too. Thank you all so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. I would love to answer any questions you may have and connect with people who have similar experiences. You can find me and continue the discussion in the Gender Spectrum Lounge. Bye!